there?
We are not on YouTube, we're just those guys on Zoom.
Okay.
So.
And there's another one. One of them was comforted without these.
Okay, here we go. City Council work session to order, November 9th, 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Allison,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Jeff Guard. Jeff, I just called your name. I saw you unmute, I know you're there. Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
Kristen Carpenter,
Here.
and Ken Jones.
Here.
That is everyone.
Your work session topic tonight is the 2023 city budget preparation. Manager Howard.
Okay, thank you. Last week during the work session, you gave some good feedback, and the document in front of you, the second draft version of the 2023
I don't know
budget.
if anybody can hear me. There's some real garbled stuff going on here, but I don't hear any words or anything.
Oh, shoot. You can't hear us if we're speaking right into the mics like this? Melina, do you hear us?
Yeah, you guys are coming in clear for me.
Jeff, you're on a computer? Not just your cell?
He's not understanding what you're saying.
I know.
He was just on.
I know. We heard you well. Jeff, what, you want to unmute and try talking again? Not if you can't hear me.
Or disconnect and come back again.
Yeah, so that's right. Shoot him a text.
It's easier to call him.
Yeah.
So you're not hearing us, huh? And you're on a computer, like a laptop or a desktop, not just your phone? Try disconnecting and reconnecting to the Zoom. Okay, because Melina hears us fine.
I think it depends on your internet connection.
Okay,
If you have a good internet connection, the computer
Thanks.
should work just fine.
So Kevin said that,
I know, but I don't know how to talk to her on that.
but that's the computer is picking up the microphone when we speak. So that's how Jeff is hearing us and
What
Melina.
about Melina? Because Melina
Same
hears
thing.
us.
So the mic up here, that
So we
one?
have to be conscientious about speaking into our mics loud enough that the computer over there can hear it.
Okay.
And maybe he was hearing papers and stuff?
I was shuffling some papers.
Yeah,
that
I
might
mean,
have-
maybe.
I had it down, but put it up.
Tell Melina she doesn't have to.
I wonder if there's feedback, like, is he getting it twice because it's coming through the microphone and through the computer speakers?
I don't know. And we tested it quite a bit.
We did. It seemed to be working, and it's working for Melina, so that's a thing.
There's the messages in the chat too.
Well, that was Melina just asking if she needed to restart, and I told her no. On a text.
Where's Jeff at?
I think just Anchorage.
Oh, okay. This is the meeting.
Okay, he's back. Jeff, can you hear us now? Or at all better?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay. So in front of you is the second draft version of the 2023 budget, incorporating the feedback that we got last week. Also working with department heads on the budget and identifying things that we could do to trim it. We also consolidated the travel line to make it one lump sum for each department, acknowledging that we haven't had any trouble for a while, and there's a need and desire to get some professional development opportunities for our staff. And then everything else is pretty much as originally presented last week. The school budget is in at $2,300,000 for CCMC, but there is an increased request from the school. So just to be clear, this budget doesn't include the basically $300,000 increase that they're requesting. On the revenue side, we have not yet budgeted any increase in property taxes. Sales tax revenue, we analyzed where we are to date and what we anticipate will be year-end numbers and planned accordingly for 2023. School bond debt reimbursement budgeting at 100%. Raw fish tax, again, the rolling average that we had discussed earlier. And the one difference that I want to articulate, I know there was concern about using those ARPA revenues, but this budget is balanced with ARPA revenues. Just over $300,000 of which is allocated to the 2nd Street and Whiteshed Road matching requirements for 2023, so they're one-time dollars, capital, if you will. And then just over $266,000 that's allocated to balance the operating fund budget. Again, those are just recommendations that are put in front of you by staff. And with that, I guess we open it for discussion and questions. We do have in the room several department heads. For those on the phone, we have Tony, we have, no, he wasn't, I thought he was here. He's
He has a meeting.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so Paul is here representing fire and EMS. Chief is here representing the police department. Malvin's here, as is Sam, both with city facilities, sewer, water, enterprise funds will be tackling later, but refuse is on the table as well as some other things. Streets, streets. And then Duncan's here representing Parks and Rec, so they're available for any questions that you might have specifically about the operating budget. I do want to just also acknowledge that in front of you is the first of the capital budgets. It represents the needs that each staff department has identified to help them do the work and accomplish what you all hope for, to get city services performed at a level which you can consider. So I'd love to just kind of dive in here a little bit around some of the assumptions made and any concerns and questions you have around the operating budget, and then have a conversation, 45 minutes or so, however long, to start digging into the capital budget.
8%.
I have a picky little question. Does the 265,848, does that show up as a line item somewhere? I was just trying to track where, you said it's used for the operating fund, but.
It's transfer on probably one of the latter pages. Let me find it for you. It's a transfer from the ARPA funds.
Page 4.
I think on page 4, it has the full amount.
Oh, I see.
300,000, that's for the grant match.
The 574?
So the transfer from the ARPA fund on page 4 is the totality of that. It's just a transfer, and then the offset on the expense side is in each of those categories that I mentioned earlier, one of which is in the, is also on kind of an asset line too. So,
308,000, okay, thank you, thanks.
Does that zero out the ARPA funds then, or is there?
No.
There's additional ARPA funds?
Yeah, there's still additional funds.
And do you have that amount?
It really depends on how much we're using this calendar year.
Well, if we use your 574, whatever that is,
This
how much is left?
I'll just say 0. Let's just put it that way. We have things that have been budgeted that are not being expended. It's probably around 300,000 that is floating, and will probably need to be reallocated, but we'll just assume that it's been obligated to other projects, and those projects may or may not reach completion before these grant funds need to be expended. We have a 2024 deadline.
Next. Ready?
I was wondering for some of the revenues, because you said the sales tax had been adjusted, were the revenues updated to include the new fee schedules that had been discussed, like with the Cordova Center, or the commercial water users, or like the Parks and Rec?
And talk into this, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. The question was whether or not fee schedule increases are reflected in this budget, and the answer is no.
And our follow-up, Parks and Rec wasn't collecting sales tax previously. I don't know how much that would come out to, but is that included in the new sales tax revenues?
Is it? Yes, I guess. We just have a, I would have to dig a little deeper to identify exactly what's in those numbers.
Yeah, my philosophy at the moment is any number that we put as a fee includes sales tax.
Got it, thank you.
Councilman Bailey. So the Cordova Center part-time events coordinator, is that on page 12 under salary and wages? Is that the wages for that? Right on the Cordova Center, first line, 77,613.
Yeah, that would be fully loaded with all benefits, withholding and whatnot.
Okay, so the following, when you have FICA, PERS,
Oh, wait.
insurance.
Excuse me, sorry. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. No, that is a full-time position, and I will share that that position there includes a half-time new position, which is for the Cordova Center coordinator, and then the second piece is carving off a piece of our IT, unfilled IT position, and making it one whole position. So an existing position is unfilled and is being reallocated so that the Cordova Center coordinator and an IT person who does tech here for this building are making it a full-time position. Whether or not that's how it will go, I don't know if the right people would be qualified to do both, but they're presented that way.
So what are you budgeting for the wages or salary for the Cordova Center?
It's a half-time position, so if you just divide that in half.
Okay. That $130 some thousand, divide that in half.
What page are you on?
Salaries.
On page 12, you have salaries, but on top of salaries, you have FICA and everything else. I guess that's, I'm not,
Hold on just a second here. Make sure I'm right.
yeah, it's right under Cordova Center, the first line under salary and wages, 77,613.
Right, so half of that would be for coordinator, which is a new position, and the other half is for tech, which is an existing position, IT tech.
Okay, so you're gonna try to get one person to do both things? Is that what you're telling me?
It would make sense if that person exists, and if not, we can divide them into pieces.
Okay, so then the actual cost would be the 77,613 plus.
Everything below that, yep.
Right, so you're looking at about $130,000, $140,000 for that position, right?
Correct, and again, right now, a portion of that IT coordinator job, which does exist at a much higher pay scale, is allocated towards this position.
Okay, so then I can assume $70,000 approximately would go towards the events coordinator. The part-time is half of that cost, 140, half of that is 70, right?
Yeah, 6570.
Okay. But we bring in $20,000 last year for the 2021, about $20,000 in.
And I just want to acknowledge that Cordova Center includes the library, includes museum, and includes this space used by council and many other public events where there's no fees charged. So you know, I contend that it's not just for paid events. It's for all users of this facility.
All use of the facility. So we have a lot of people using it that don't pay, is what you're saying?
Can I answer that? So this week we've had Golf Watch in here for meetings all this week. It's an EVOS group. When we got $8.5 million for this building from EVOS, we said we wouldn't charge them. They could use the building free of charge. So yes, every single meeting in here that the city operates, the commissions, the Harbor Commission upstairs, no charge, no charge. So we have to bring in outside events from outside this group and outside EVOS to make money on the facility. So, and then I have another question. I thought also,
Just
yeah,
finish
okay, go
my
ahead. I knew you were
question. Because that's where I'm trying to get to this, you know, if you take the utilities for this civic center and divide it up 3 parts, it comes to about $46,000 per unit. Now, whether we try to recoup that or not, that is a cost. And then when we have an event here, I don't know, are we supplying coffee, are we bringing donuts in?
Charged
setting
for
up?
that.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at, but I don't see that anywhere. We're only made $20,000, so,
It's on the fee schedule probably.
but we made $20,000. And now we're gonna add $70,000, and part of that position is gonna be to do this. And plus you've got janitorial and there's cost. And probably the time to look at this is our fee schedule, you know, and we can have this discussion, but I guess I'm not in favor of throwing more money at this until we realize what we're doing and how much we're bringing in, at least try to break even. So that was my question on that. So $70,000 is definitely budgeted for this part-time coordinator job. And we're bringing 20 in.
Ms. Marla Sherman?
Thank you. Pre-COVID, we were close to $50,000 annually for events in the Cordova Center. Still doing some rebounding. The fee schedule, which I will not be here at next week's meeting if we're going to discuss it, has been increased by 20%. We have not increased our fees for the Cordova Center since it opened. So the fees have gone up 20%. And correct me if I'm wrong, Helen, doesn't this Cordova Center budget, the salaries and wages, doesn't it also include 1/4 of Paula's time as theater manager?
Right, so it's, the way that this is working right now is just acknowledging the work that's done by a variety of people to run this center. And also acknowledging that we need to find one individual that can do this work because, as Mimi mentioned last week, she said, you guys are getting a good deal. And she's been doing a lot of this work. I mean, she's basically here every time I come in, it seems. So we are attempting to be realistic about the cost of running a center and the cost as related to not just rental events, but the cost related to this building and the users of this building, whether it's city council or different departments for meetings and whatever else not. So I think it would be very difficult to come up with a cost center that covered every expense associated with the use of the center here. But it's certainly something that I know that with fee schedule analysis and other things that the team that works here has been really trying to make sure that when an event uses the facility, that the cost to city to use it is covered. The problem is that there's a lot of events that don't get charged, and that includes us in this room right now. So, so just keeping that in mind, and we can probably provide a little bit more in-depth analysis if you need it.
Well, perfect, that's what I was looking for.
Ms. Marla Carpenter?
Thanks. Our calculator, but
Into your mic, please.
I think started to make this point last week, but the analysis of are we covering our costs for this building, I think has to include people who come for the EVOS meeting. I don't know, was there 8 of them maybe? And,
Room was full.
Much more.
and how many nights are they here for?
5.
5, and they're paying $120, $130 a night and 12% tax on that. And so all of that sales tax revenue and the bed tax revenue is also coming into our coffers, and that's part of what's helping to pay for this. So I think that interpretation of what's the line item for the staff person and what's the actual fee that the building is generating is too narrow a calculation to factor in what this building is really generating. And it would benefit, I think, if you want to do a more, a more detailed calculation on that, that would be more realistic, I think, to talk about what does the building generate in terms of revenue for the community. And that was the whole idea, was how many of those meetings can we have a winter? Could we have at least 3 of them where we bring in 30 or 40 people and they're staying in local lodging and eating in local restaurants? Could we keep more restaurants open in the winter? But I think all of that, this building was meant to be an asset for winter tourism. And I think that's why I keep saying, how do we, what can we do to market it? And make sure that those groups are being approached and recruited to come into town, because we know it's hard to get to. If we don't have the ferry system, we know it's expensive to fly, but it's still, people love to come to Cordova. So I think we need to say that this building is an asset, and it has terrific resources in terms of the sound and the auditorium and the museum, and that's the whole point of bringing in the Board of Fish and really big groups like that. So I guess I see this as an investment. We have to, if we want those people to come, then we have to have resources to be able to host them. And so that's the point of, having IT and.
I agree with that, but like at the last meeting when I asked, how do you quantify your cost for this, and everybody goes, I don't know. I've been doing this for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, we can get into this in the fee schedule. So that's why my concern is, are we just doing this to do it, or has somebody got their hand on the numbers? And if we're not breaking even, are we covering our cost?
Ms. Schaefer?
I did have a question. Sorry. I did have a question kind of adjacent to this, where do we have funding or some kind of strategy for marketing the Cordova Center as an event space? Is that included in someone's job title that's funded in these positions? I know there's, communication person or city PR funded.
So I think that is an assumption that we made in creating this position, is that they will be available to answer questions and promote to a certain extent. But I think we've always envisioned that there'd be a partnership with the
Chamber.
Chamber, and it's a conversation we've had, and I think they similarly are skinny staffed and don't have the resources to do that at the level we want. But Kathy and team have been putting together marketing materials, and why don't you go ahead and.
Well, I was just gonna say, we have an MOU with the Chamber that was signed prior to the building being open. And it basically states that the Chamber is responsible for marketing the facility to groups and events that might want to come here. It's their responsibility to market it and sell it. It's the city's responsibility to operate, maintain, provide the services that we do for the conferences and events. We do have a complete marketing plan that we paid for that is available and has been shared with the Chamber a couple administrators ago, but I still have it on my computer. So it's not our job to market it, it is the Chamber's job.
Okay, thank you. I was not aware of that.
Anybody else online? Lena, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Councilmember Guard?
He's on there twice. He's not replying to my texts. I think that's his number 2.
Councilmember Jones?
Well, I guess while we're on the topic of the Cordova Center, I guess I'll harp on it a little bit. I really want to get the moss off the roof. So Is there anything we can do in the capital budget for that? I didn't see it in here.
Melvin might have some ideas of what is in the works.
I already cleared the moss problem, and if you could tell me which side, maybe I'll have a better idea where.
I've been out of town, so I actually haven't looked, but.
Okay.
It's off.
It's off.
Yeah, great, thank you.
That was so easy.
Yeah.
Well done.
I know for years we talked about seagull deterrence up there too. We,
I saw up there as well.
awesome.
One more?
Yeah, window washing.
It's raining 16 inches in 2
I
months.
mean, I don't think we've ever washed them the whole time we've been building it, but.
We did wash them.
All right,
It has been
perfect.
before.
Thanks.
Councilman Baylor?
Yes, the other question I had is on the project manager. When that was brought to us here this spring and the discussion ensued, I asked, how's that going to be paid for? And the response was half through ARPA funds and half through harbor funds. But now I see that's coming out of the general fund, so when and why did that get changed?
We can take money out of any number of sources. I think the intent is at this point in time, as it stood in the fall, that definitely is where things are coming from. But moving forward, it's really obvious that the core of that position is around accessing the federal resources that are going to be available. It'll extend past the life of the ARPA funds that are available. And the other thing is that cities obligated to do matching funds for many of the grants that we get. And so what we pull out of general fund or whatever, if it has to come out of harbor, that's the intent of the body, we can do that. But that is considered a match, and it shows cities' commitment to the project. So that's where I've sort of mentally allocated those two pots. But again, back to the ARPA, those funds will expire before the need for this position will expire. And so that is why I suggested the general fund.
Well, I think when you brought it to us and you explained it was coming out of ARPA funds and the harbor funds, I thought, well, look, that's great. You got free money on one side, and then if he's going to be the project manager, not project manager, inspector, so they help out with the harbor, I fully support that. That would be the end of it. We never had a discussion, council, we never had a discussion about hiring somebody for 3 years, paying them out of general fund, bringing in a new position, which is project manager, which we didn't have before. That's a little different story there. Now, whether we need that position or we should have that position, well, we didn't have that discussion because we assumed it was basically coming out of grants and ARPA funds. So, I don't know, to me that's kind of disappointing to kind of sneak that one in that way.
I could very easily draw the funds out of another source and make it work for you, but I do want to contend that that position is essential if we want to tap into any of the unique one-time up to, for another couple of years, federal funding opportunities. We don't have bandwidth to do that without some assistance, and we are definitely in need of someone on the ground who can help manage the harbor project. So the essential functions that that position covers is not, I hope in the fall when I brought that up, I did not make it seem as it was something that we don't need, because we do at every level. Where we fund it from, I mean, you can give me direction on how to do that. It doesn't change the bottom line here in this budget. It just changes the sources of funds, and we can do that.
Well, it would change the bottom line, wouldn't it? Because you're going to have to bring more ARPA funds in to pay his position, and then you would, and whether I agree with doing it or not, you'd be bringing funds out of the harbor. So that takes his salary right out of this budget, doesn't it?
The ARPA funds, actually, we have, as I mentioned before, we have some unexpended funds there, but not yet. They have been obligated, so we would need to move, looking for my memo, Of the ARPA funds that are listed, we need to move the 265,848 out of the operating fund that was used to balance the budget. We would allocate a portion of that to that position.
Well, then how are you gonna balance the budget? If you take it out of the operating fund, the ARPA funds?
It's just moving money, essentially. I mean, I thought I understood that you were concerned that we weren't using ARPA funds for that position. This 265,848 is used to balance the operating fund. I can make sure that it's dedicated over the next 2 years for that position, and then move general fund dollars in. It's not going to save any money. Let's just put it that way. It will not save money. It just moves money. So. Or maybe I'm confusing everybody, including myself.
No, I think the only way that it saves money is if we
cut the
transfer
position.
more money from the harbor to cover some of that, but that, yeah, moving that ARPA fund, I said it, I think, last time, but, you know, we spend that ARPA funds in the next week, and then you don't have them, and then you just worry about general fund, and you've got your ARPA criteria done, it's done, use it for every expense that we have for the next week, and then it's done, so. Carpenter?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there is so much money out there right now coming from the infrastructure bill and from other federal programs, and I've already seen, I was talking to people today about the fact that we probably aren't coordinating as much as we need to be able to take advantage of getting that money. So even if this position costs $100,000 a year, even if it's more, even if it's $150,000, you know, getting 1 or 2 of those a year is going to pay for itself, and it's going to be more than $150,000. It's going to be on the order of probably closer to $500,000 or $700,000 or $800,000, just with all the money that's coming in. And so it would be penny wise and pound foolish not to try to tap into that and take advantage of it.
I agree. I guess my point is we should have had that discussion this spring, saying we're gonna fund this out of our general fund. And we'd had a discussion, we probably all would have agreed with that, but that's not what we were told. We were told it's coming half out of ARPA, half out of, and, yeah, well, I wanna know how the money's come in and how it's spent.
I'm just saying we're having a discussion now, so that's, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we just need to commit, council needs to commit to evaluating that in a year, and if they made us 5 million, fine. If they didn't make us anything, then we consider it a little differently the next time, so. Councilmember Jones?
I think Councilmember Sherman first.
Are you sure? I was just gonna say, a lot of grants that we apply for have either a 15 to 20% administration gift, basically, for the person who's running the project of cash. So you bring in a grant, you get money for your position. A lot of positions, grant writers, that's how they're funded. So more grants we bring in, we also bring in to cover the cost of our projects.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, so maybe I'm missing something here, but I thought that individual was hired to replace an outgoing individual in the grant writing position. I mean, when Curtis left, we hired Colin.
No, so when Curtis left, we did hire Colin, and then I came to you all in the fall and said, hey, we have this opportunity to move him into a position where his skills would be more useful, which is on the ground management of the harbor project and accessing these infrastructure dollars. And so that was what I presented to you in September. And Emily Anderson has been hired to replace Curtis. She's doing all of our public communications and other kind of the more day-to-day grant stuff. Colin has been tasked with doing higher level and major focus on the infrastructure and major focus on the harbor rebuild once the contract is let and we need an on-the-ground person. So both of those tasks are being given to him. And as I said, you're right, he was hired initially for that, but we had another highly qualified, capable candidate, and we were able to fill in a position that is really needed over the next few years.
Okay, and then I guess one other point that I want to, I guess everybody knows it, but I want to bring it up is the fact that the administrative allocation cost that the general fund is receiving from the harbor is up like $100,000 over the last 5 years. So it's considerable, the amount of, you know, the harbor is already chipping in quite a bit for this type of, all of Sam's work that she's doing and Curtis's and Colin's work. I mean, the harbor is paying for that already through that administrative allocation fee. And it's substantially higher than it ever was prior to like 2016. So when we raised it, and then, you know, we implemented the new stall increases in the wharfage, and it's based off of percentage. So as we raise our stalls to pay for this new harbor, that percentage went up, and it's an ever-growing piece of the harbor budget. So I guess I want to just bring that up, that the harbor is kind of paying for those services already.
Didn't you say, Helen, that you were reevaluating the allocations? Are we still going, are we 15% across the board, or are we across the board on all of those enterprise funds, or?
Right now, what's budgeted is basically how we've done in the past, but we're taking a deep dive looking out, and part of the fee schedule next week, conversation around the allocation, because some departments lean more heavily on city admin than others, and there's been question raised by those various departments about equity in the allocations. So we're taking a look at that.
Yeah, that's what I thought you'd said, so. Any other questions on the budget before us, or are you happy? We can, ready for the motion?
I'm ready for the capital budget
Discussion.
Motion, we're in a work session.
I think there's still some more refinements that we need to make with the budget, and it's consider this still a working document. Not quite ready for prime time, but I'm feeling very, very good about this, and I do want you to know that staff has worked really, really hard, not only on this budget, but on their individual departments, on the work that is expected of them, and I want to acknowledge every single one of city staff, and hope that this budget will help them feel like they're supported in the work that they're doing. So, thank you.
Yeah, I guess my only bottom summary line comment would be that we're still spending $1.5 million more than we spent last year. So we're taking in a little more, but we're spending 14+% more than we did last year. So that's just my last comment. So
300,000 of that is unfunded because it's come from ARP funds.
And I do want to also acknowledge, I will have an up-to-date, year-to-date expenditure document for you so that you can see how we're tracking. So yeah, we may be over 2021, but right now we're operating in 2022, and those numbers are very different than 2021, which was a year when we were still COVID-centric, and a lot of things were not tracking normally. So I'll get you a document that will allow you to compare 2022 numbers to the proposed 2023 numbers to give you a better sense of exactly where we're at.
Yeah, because 300,000 of it is capital project money on page 22, so anyway, that would be.
The other 300,000 is general, yeah, so we're still short $300,000 from revenue.
Councilmember Jones?
Before we move on to the capital budget, I guess one thing that we've talked about it in the past, and I guess I'm going to go a little out of character here and actually suggest that we evaluate raising the chamber's number and implement a fish box tax to cover the increase.
I can speak to the fish box tax because I know it was brought up the last time, and I knew there somewhere in my brain cells that I'd heard this conversation before. So I did talk to Sitka. They do fund. They have a fairly large charter business, and it's the charter operators that actually collect the tax on behalf of the city. spoke to Alaska Airlines folks, and they said, we are not collecting tax on fish boxes. That's not what they do. I suppose we could somehow pressure them into that, but that is off the table. So then the question is, how would we collect that tax, given that we have very few charter operators that we can identify perhaps. So I think there's some more work that needs to be done. I don't see that as being a big revenue number right at the moment, only because we don't have logical tax points where we can collect enough to make it worthwhile. I can certainly investigate it more, but that was my high, as far as I got, and I went, this could be more complicated.
Some of it is the processors are processing, but some guys are just getting their own boxes and packing up their own
Yeah.
boxes, so.
So do we, charge, see where are the sources where people are getting boxes? It's difficult to know how we would do that. Would the tax be applied to all processors, from the large processors down to the small independent processors? Are we looking to capture the tourists who come in and use guided services or whatever? Do we want to tax every single box that comes into town? And I don't have a way to quantify those numbers yet, but it would behoove, if we want to go down that route, the only way to really make a dent in the budget would be to as broadly apply that tax as possible.
Any other comments on the budget? Did you send us, Helen, did you send out a report of the fund balances?
So that I sent out as the cash vest analysis because I think it gave the most, and there is a section here where the various fund balances and what their earnings are listed. And I hope that provides you with the kind of information you are looking for. I do want to share that we are moving money based on this cash vest report and an understanding of what our actual cash flow needs are. Two things. Number one, the harbor bond funds have to be kept in a separate fund because we're subject to arbitrage and other kinds of restrictions. So we're going to establish an account at AMLIT, the Alaska Municipal League Investment Pool, because those funds will start moving out the door and it's very easy to access for payment purposes. And then another $2 million will be put into our PBS account. That will be coming before you for authorization. And so the numbers in front of you here, just keep in mind that we are moving some revenue, some assets based on the analysis presented in this document. So those numbers are there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
But you're not moving them from the general fund to something else. You might be moving them from the general fund non-interest bearing to a general fund interest bearing.
Right. So there's quite a bit of money in the repurchase account, which is ridiculous. So those funds are going into longer term investments.
That's what I call a sweep account, and I've been complaining about that for 10 years. But I was glad to see that they thought that there was probably $4 million extra in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess what I was looking for was a projection of where that's going to be at the beginning, or at the end of this year, or at the beginning of next year. What those fund balances are. I don't know what the date was on that report, but it was a while ago.
Okay, while you guys are talking some more, I can get you those numbers.
But it's not critical today, but just before we make a final decision on the budget, I think that makes a difference on, if we see that there's a bunch of money out there or not much money out there.
We've not been rating the the endowed funds or the reserve accounts. They've been growing based on investment earnings. So I'll get you those balances and then you can see what they are.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaefer?
Is the moving of some of those funds into a more invested, like what the cash vest analysis suggested, is that what's reflected in the increased revenue,
No.
in the investment earnings?
No, that is actual though. That's based on actual. We, year to date, I think we're at $49,000 in investment earnings based on where our funds currently sit. So the $50,000 in the budget is maybe even a little bit low, depending on how those investments are. But we're at $50,000 this year in a market that's gone south a bit, so.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on the general fund?
Yeah, well, general budget, yeah. So I was just looking at our employee list here, what do you call it?
Chart of,
Org
chart
chart.
of accounts, org chart, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Chart of accounts, yeah.
So underneath the museum director and library director, museum assistant, museum curator, are all these paid positions or are they volunteer positions? Cultural program leader, are those, is that a lot of volunteer positions?
No, those are actual paid positions. Everything on the org chart are paid positions. They may not be full-time positions, keep in mind, but they are bodies occupying roles.
Okay. And then, where did I read that? One of them was the gift shop up here. Is that, so like the money's from the gift shop, the money's from the Cordova Center, where does that money go to? Does that just go into the general fund?
Yes.
There's no money from the gift shop coming to the city. It goes to the Historical Society. That is also in the MOU with the city. The Historical Society uses that funding to potentially hire a seasonal person to do the permanent exhibits, to do the conservation and the preservation of the collection. And they also pay for all the training and travel and software for the museum.
Okay, so that these other, the museum assistants and curator, they don't do that work, they get somebody else to do that stuff? All right, I don't know anything about the library and museum, I just read all the
Obviously.
notes. Well, excuse me.
I think though, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all the people who work in the museum, with the exception of volunteers, of which there are volunteers, do serve as front desk folks. They help restock the gallery, restock the gift shop, they hang work, they do any number of things. And again, those positions are not necessarily full-time. I don't know.
And you said the money from the rental of the civic center, that just goes into
To general fund, yep.
Okay. Right. As well as leases,
Yes, so.
property leases.
Yeah, so you'll see on the first page of the budget, under leases and rents, you'll see North Harbor, Philly, South Harbor, and other things. And I also wanted to say, I know there's been some question about where do we budget for the reimbursement that's required by the various enterprise funds that borrowed money from the permanent fund or other places, and we do charge interest and we do book those expenses and we do take it out of their enterprise budget. So that's all reflected here, where there was money loaned to any of the various funds to cover the cost of equipment or whatever. Those repayments have been booked, they are on the balance sheet, and they are acknowledged in the audit. So those are definitely quantified here in the budget.
Is that, I think they took $1 million out of permanent fund to finish this building. Is that was supposed to get paid back in some manner or fashion? Is that included in there? Is that?
I have not seen that as a booked.
Okay, all right.
It's not reflected in any of the documents that we have, either the audits or any other document.
Did we still have the hospital for a while? You know, we were giving them money, and then for a while, when Providence came in, they said they could make us money, so we started making all of those as loans.
Yeah,
Those were booked at one time. Are those still booked?
They are still booked. I believe the auditors have essentially written them off because it's closing around $5 million over time. It's not considered collectible.
Yeah, I know at one point in time, the hospital was asking us or wanting us to write that off because it shows on their books as a liability as well, so their books look worse because it's a liability that they're not paying back, and you know, it's probably, you're right, we're never gonna collect it, so. Other questions? Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I guess, I totally changing the subject from the city center, but I appreciate the raise in the repair and maintenance for Ski Hill. I was curious if there have been any, has there been any discussion on painting of the towers? I know that's infrastructure that the city owns, and it's
I think-
worn down to primer. I'm getting more and more concerned with those things, you know.
Yeah, that has been brought up, and I believe that that was one of the asks in this budget as presented. I want you to know that I asked Duncan, who heads up Parks and Rec, to be the liaison with the ski hill because he knows that infrastructure, he knows that business, and he could speak more specifically about that, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so I've had a few discussions with Dave Vigiani mainly around what their increased budget is for, and one of the items is starting the repainting program of those towers. Obviously $20,000 isn't going to go too many towers, but I think over a number of years we should work with them around an actual capital program as well. So.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was curious about, if that was what that money was for, so thanks.
Anybody else? Online, last chance before we move on to the capital?
He's not replying to me. I hope he's there. Yeah, it
Move
looks like
on
he's there.
with the capital budget then.
Okay, on page 23 of your packet is the capital projects budget. We are starting to work on a 5-year plan for capital. It's still in rough stages, but I asked each department head to put together things that they felt were essential for 2023, as well as look at things that probably are 24, 25, 26, and especially to get us in a way of thinking about, oh gosh, we have to do this big $500,000 project in 2 years, we better start looking for resources to help us pay for that, and give all of you, council, the opportunity for a heads up to help decide what is essential and priority. So these are organized by department. If you look in the final column to the right, it's alphabetical, starting with city clerk, city manager, facility maintenance, fire, EMS, jail operations, law enforcement. Those are collectively the same, but they're separate in the budget. Parks and Rec, and then streets and public works. I want to draw a couple things to your attention. The first two items are, we're calling them capital. They have a direct impact on records retention and our sales tax code. They're one-time things we'll do, get things rolling, get everything up to speed, and then there'll be annualized costs that will get integrated into the budget to make sure that we keep up with those things. But we have to make an initial investment. So as you all know, the sales tax code was last revised in the early 2000s, way out of date, doesn't acknowledge the existence of the online marketplace that we are now dealing with. Lots of confusion, which you guys all have heard from vendors here in town about how we apply that code. And so it's been recommended that we spend some money, get our legal team, get our business owners together, and we clean up this code and make it something where we can actually collect taxes at the levels that we need to. One of the things that has been problematic on the sales tax side is that folks have been confused or interpreting differently the code so that different people apply their payments in different ways. So we just want to make sure that we have very clear language, legal language, where we can enforce compliance with the sales tax intentions. So that's that, $50,000, it's mostly legal fees. And then the records retention project, you may not know, but we probably have a record number of fish count, poundage in paper storage at both the hospital and here in City Hall. We're wasting, first of all, no one knows what it is. We don't have it accessible. A lot of it can be pitched, and we need to get in the habit of doing electronic record keeping. So this project will clean out all of the tons of paper storage, scan those essential documents, put them in the cloud, and get rid of a lot of paper and free up some real estate for additional office space or whatever. So I view this as a really critical project. We're budgeting 25 to just get through all that paperwork and get us scanned. Then we'll have a records retention program that each department head will keep up with, and we won't have to do this again with any luck. So those are two items that are in the capital budget that probably could be questioned, but again, they are essential to getting us our records infrastructure and our code infrastructure up to speed. Then I want to also bring to mind, I asked each department to go through, because they had multiple things, and I said, okay, we have the 2023 capital requests, which totaled just over 2.8 million. I asked each department to prioritize 1, 2, 3, 4, and to identify those things that could potentially be partially or fully paid for with grant or other funding sources. Those are asterisks. So I've asked each department head if they were available to be here today, and how are we going to pay for this? That is a question. Obviously, we don't, in some cases, grants can pay for it, but I think the other pieces that we have not really kept up to snuff with our infrastructure, and it's going to start costing us, and we're going to be recommending some infrastructure improvements, maintenance, repairs. And some of the things that are on this list could potentially knock us out of use of those facilities, including the swimming pool repairs and a few other things where we're precariously close to having some issues that will close down those facilities. I do want to let you know that Duncan has taken the charge on working with Kaufman Engineers, $280,000 contract to assess every building with engineers going through, identifying problems. That report will be out in, what do we say, December-ish? Yeah. So it won't influence this budget, but it's definitely going to influence the conversations that we'll have, and we'll start it again early next year around where do we want to put our money. In the meantime, my hope is that we'll take some money out of the general fund reserve and other places where we can knock some of these things off the list and get our teams up to speed with good equipment, reliable equipment, and repair things that are really not going to serve the community for much longer if we don't take care of them. So that's my spiel. Any questions? I've got staff here to answer specific questions, and we'll just listen in on your conversation.
Anybody have any suggestion? I would guess I would prefer to just go down the list and bring Melvin up first for facilities, or Melvin and Sam, and go through that, go through each section and tell us about the project and how that is needed and why it's needed, and that makes sense? So Melvin, if you could go through your list there, start with replacing public safety building exterior doors. What's wrong with them and why they need to be replaced? And it's a priority too, which in your guys' mind, what does that mean? Is that a 1 year out, a 2 year out, a 3 year out?
We're ranking these on this year.
This is this year's ranking for
We're saying it's our
calendar.
second rank, this is the second most important thing.
So you're saying if we have 500,000, we go with the number ones, and then as many number twos as we can get?
No, I think
Would we make
just,
that money, or?
just to be clear, each department ranked their own projects, so they need to be viewed. You will need to decide which ones you think are most important, but each department only ranked their own. So, and I didn't apply any rankings, so I didn't say all number ones should be funded, all number twos. I asked each department to just tell me of the projects, what were the top 4.
Yeah, well, right now, we didn't leave any money in our budget for any capital, but go ahead, Malvin, could you tell us about the projects? Or Sam?
Okay, I'll start with my first rank project, is the overhead door inspection and preventive maintenance. That, it is not ranked, actually it is ranked the same thing on the capital project.
Which overhead door is that you're talking about?
We're covering the fire departments, we're talking streets, refuse, water, sewer.
Oh, so all of them?
For all of them, yes.
Okay.
That's the 10,300.
That's correct. And this is just the initial. So hopefully when we get done with the initial, it'll be lower next year. Any question on that one? Okay. My number 2 rank next is the Cordova Chambers Commerce roof replacement. It was when we had the 2018 windstorm. The chambers received some damages, and I've had them repaired, but there was extensive damages that we just couldn't fix. I've had other contractors throughout the years to fix the problem, and it did not work. So I believe changing the roof would be really good right now. I did have an inspection there, and what we've seen is the fasteners has pretty much wallowed out and needs to be replaced. And I've done that already, but again, the tin needs to be replaced already because the damage already been done inside. We stopped the leak for a little bit, but now I was just told just last week that it started again.
Where is it leaking, and what's the damage?
The damage is to the floor. It's coming through
the roof.
The roof?
Yeah.
Yes, it's pretty close to the peak, the
Ridge?
The ridge, yes.
And it's leaking, is that a north-clad roof or a skyline roof?
I believe some Norclad.
North-clad has the exposed
Yes.
fasteners?
Norclad, yep.
Yeah, so you put larger fasteners in those?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's, for Norclad, that's probably close to its life expectancy. If I may, going back to the doors, what's the $10,000, what's that covering?
That's covering fire departments.
No, excuse me, who are you paying $10,000 to? What's it for?
It'll be for the Door Systems of Alaska. They're coming down here for so many days to go through all the bay doors, all the overhead doors, with including the rental for the scissor lift and the trailer as well. Because if we have to go to the landfill, that's over 17 feet tall overhead door that will need to have a scissor lift to inspect it properly and safely.
All right, so my question would be, we're paying $250 million for this engineering firm to come down here and look at our facilities. Couldn't they do the inspection for you?
Well, it's a PM. They're basically tune our doors, so they don't keep getting walled out. Pretty much, right?
It's basically preventive maintenance. It's
Well,
not.
they're doing some maintenance.
They're
Oh,
doing
that
initial
clarifies.
inspection because they're new and they want to know that they're actually know what other problems they can find.
Okay, if the springs need adjusting, they're gonna adjust them, they're gonna oil them.
That's correct.
And you guys are oiling those springs over here, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
All right, that makes sense. I thought you were just bringing somebody down to inspect and make a recommendation.
No.
Okay.
Melvin, I think you missed number 2 up top there, the replace public safety buildings exterior doors.
That I don't have that as my number 2.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going by with what my notes were and
Okay, I must have-
correction
Okay.
on the list.
Okay.
And then my number 3, if we're good with number 2. Yes? Okay. My number 3 is the Cordova Center staircase, TS rubber stair threads and install project. Now, if you guys are coming from the bottom parking lot and decide, okay, I need to walk up the stairs, then you guys will see that I've painted it before, I've washed it, and it looks better, but now it's starting to be poor again, and with wear and tear, we're getting scratches, and meaning it'll be more difficult to clean up, and whatever paint is chipping off, we just have to repaint it again. By installing this cover, it protects it and also saves the concrete from chipping away. The cover is a rubber that basically encloses the staircase and protects the concrete from any scratches, and also pretty much preserve it from being chipped. And also the TS rubber is also is slip resistant, so that will cover that as well. And it's not just a staircase, we're pretty much gonna have a runner all the way through, so it'll cover the whole thing, because we'll spend the same thing and maybe more trying to cut just a section. We might as well just do the whole thing and have all the concrete be preserved at the same time.
Did you have a 4?
Question, can I ask a question? Are we talking about the exterior stairs outside the Cordova Center or the interior?
The
Coming
interior.
up from the bottom? Oh,
The interior.
got it, okay, that makes more sense now.
Any more questions for number 3? Okay, my number 4 will be to replace the public safety building exterior doors for the fire hall and also the Alaska State Troopers. Now, the fire hall's doors were installed by non-professionals. They install the doors and there's no studs to hold that together. It's just basically just hanging in there. And the one for the troopers, they're renting our facility, and their doors doesn't even close automatically. They have to hold it in place, wait for the mag lock to close, and then they can walk away. So then that same thing, if we take that out, we don't know what we're gonna find. And I didn't get an actual price quote, but I thought I'd get close with 14,000, but it could be more depending on what they find. So that's my finding about the doors for the public safety building. Any questions?
Do you want to speak to some of the other projects, just generally, that are looking to be done either this year or in subsequent years that are on your list?
Yes. The next one would be the rehabilitation of the hardwood floor in the museum. If you guys haven't been in the museum, you should take a look. We got a nice good exhibit right now, and I know they're trying to finish up the Star Wars. But if you look on the floor, it's a nice wooden floor, but they're starting to split. And what I've understand from the professional that I was talking to, and what they also research, is that the wooden floor wasn't designed to be placed on the concrete with radiant heat, because it contracts and expands and contracts and expands, and I think that's what's happening right now. With this 14,500, what's going to happen is we're going to try to, meaning the contractor, is going to try to fill in all the cracks, sand everything else down, and then refinish it. So at least it'll be filled in, and hopefully we can just, from then on, we can just keep doing that every year, just doing the finish and maintaining it and trying to keep up with the maintenance on that one. Because I believe since it was installed, nothing has been done to it, except for it being cleaned.
Well, I might recommend that you go in there and fill some of those cracks
Okay.
and keep an eye on them, because I think if it's doing that, it's expanding the track and seasonal. I've done this, I've seen this done with floors before. They go and fill them, and then the next year you're right back to square one. I think if you took and you can fill them, make them look halfway decent.
Okay.
And keep an eye on, see what happens, because if it just keeps reoccurring,
Right.
what's the point?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you've gone through most of those. Oh, there's one other one, the carpet vinyl replacement at the Cordova Center.
Yeah. So this, the Cordova Center's carpet and vinyl demo and installation is basically taking care of the chamber, the community A and B, the hallway, the offices, education room, the library's children's area. It's been, definitely needs some TLC on that one, just because of kids. And then going back to the education room, we have a carpeted area and a vinyl area. That whole place should have been all vinyl, because we do have some projects over there and we do have some spillage. So just taking out the carpet and replacing with vinyl will get that completed. Now, I know that the price is $98,200. We're talking about removing all of the equipment, desk, everything else, and putting it back. So that's where the cost comes in, is the labor. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be moved, if we need to move it.
So again, there's items in the 2023 budget. The last ones he was just discussing are not there. They're in a future year budget, but those are items that he just wanted to bring to all of our attention as needing to be taken care of at some point. And again, he prioritized his top 4.
Well, basically $100,000 for the carpet and I mean, this place is only, what, 6 years old or something? Are you got some thoughts on something that's actually gonna hold up, putting down? I mean, there's no point doing this every 5-6 years, is there?
No, there isn't, but that's why I just presented it, if you guys are.
No, what I'm saying is, well, maybe you haven't got that far to look into maybe a better grade commercial product or something, buying a plank or something that can go down. It's sheet goods now, isn't it?
I am not sure. I have to find out which one that is. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely some better options out there than what we got. So.
Maybe we can then move on to, let's see. Sam, did you have something in particular you want to go through some of the departments, streets, public works?
Yeah, we only have 3 down there, so.
This is Melina. Could I just add something to the facility maintenance before we move on?
Go ahead.
I didn't hear, maybe I just blanked for a second or something, but the Cordova chamber, the siding replacement, that looks like it was put in for needing right away. Would that be, you kind of number that with the roof replacement? Do those kind of go hand in hand, or is that a different priority number?
No, that was a correction, and I did not talk about the sidings yet. That would be on a different project. That one, the sidings for the chamber does need to be replaced. I just didn't think it was that important as well.
Next year.
For next year, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I apologize for those numbers. I'm sure I was off when I sent them in, because I numbered all those. So for the ones on the last 3 of the list, we currently have the little white car. And we now have to go get our packages at UPS. We have to go to the back door room. And it seems like lately a lot of our engineers, visitors, whatever, police, whoever comes to visits are here in the winter, and that little white car has done well, but it needs to be replaced. Right now there is no dash lights, no gauges are working, it is at the mechanics. So we're looking for a four-wheel drive, something more along the lines that would allow for the packages. People are taking their own trucks now to go get packages, because typically the front desk staff does that for us. So that's what that one is. And Malvin, what was that, a Ford Escape or something similar to that? Explorer. So the EAG Drive culvert, the last, I call it 6 Mile, the last road out that you can turn down going out the road. There's a large culvert there, and I don't know how long it's been there, a very long time. I mean, that subdivision was put in the 80s, late 70s. It has, and I would gladly send you all a picture if you'd like to see it. They went into the culvert, and it's like this on the top. And it goes like this, about a quarter, halfway across the road. So that thing's gonna go at some point. We learned about this when the beaver was happily damming it up for us. So the reason I wanna put it out as a contract is because it's gonna take traffic control, it's gonna take a large culvert, that's gonna have to be cut in half, fitted, made a bell, pushed in, because you're gonna have to have traffic going in and out of there. There is I don't really know the name of the road, but we call it the Wilson Bridge. You can go across from over on Black Sheep, but for a fire truck or a large truck, it's not a good option. So we'd have to have that road open. It's also gonna take some pretty stout equipment that we don't have. And there's a lot of electricity running through there. So that's why we want to put it out to contract. We've had a couple chats just with Wilson just to try to understand what the project would involve. That's a rough order of magnitude estimate on that. And then we have a loader from 1999 that has been doing snow plowing since that time, has been at the landfill working, has been everywhere. It's still holding, still moving, but we need to get it replaced and try to get our equipment upgraded and running without having to scramble when one loader breaks down in the winter. So those are the three big ones for this year. Streets, we have some other large drainage projects that we're going to talk about trying to go out to contract with, because we don't have the equipment, we don't have the people, and that's what those guys do for a living. They do that all the time for very large projects. Any questions?
Councilman Jones? For the city hall vehicle, I also see on here that we have a vehicle request for the police. I don't know if they're planning on, discontinuing use of one of their vehicles. Is that something where the city hall could get use of the police vehicle that's being decommissioned? Does it have to be a brand new Explorer? Can it be a 10-year-old Explorer?
And I want to kind of park that conversation for just a moment because Chief, when he comes up, he has found, and I think Fire and EMS may be participating too, they found a program where they can talk about a fleet, and so and get financing and get the vehicles that they need and line things up so that they are replacing vehicles on a schedule rather than just waiting for something to break down. So I'll let him fill you in on that, because there might be other opportunities for us to utilize that program for other moving vehicles, whether it's loaders and vans or whatever. And we're still developing that, but I'll let him speak to that when his time comes. So yeah, let's see, Paul is going to chat next with Fire and EMS.
Yeah, thank you. So on this list, is that too loud? On my list, I have our self-contained breathing apparatus. These are the equipment that we use to walk into burning buildings to save lives. I have $259,000 in here, but unfortunately I was having issues with the program, so I couldn't really break it out too much. But Helen did bring up the fact that we could do a finance option. So basically, if we were able to purchase this equipment this year for the $259,000 over 5 years, we would save the city $230,000. So instead of doing 259 this year, actually over 5 years, and we broke it out every year, it would be about $450,000 to the taxpayers. So there is a program that we can use. It's called Community Leasing Partners, and they broke down the categories for me. So if we did a down payment of $25,000 this year with 4.9 or 4.5% interest, your first for 3 years your payments would be $85,000. 4-year payments would be $65,000. 5 years would be $53,000, or 7 years would be $40,000. So that's annually. You would do the payments out. If you did $50,000 down, your 3-year out payments would be $76,000 a year, $58,000 a year, $47,000, and $35,000 for 7 years. If you did nothing down this year and we just went with the leasing program, and I'm assuming by the looks of the budget this year is probably the best bet, your payments over 5 years would only be $57,000.
Paul, could you clarify for my sake as well as these guys'
Yes.
you were looking at replacing a portion of these items every year,
Yeah,
correct?
I was looking at replacing the rest of our packs, 5 or 6 packs a year over 5 or 6 years, and that would be $450,000 versus entering into this program, and it would only be what the quote I got would be out from January 1st would be the $259,000. So
Is that divided up, or is that a one year?
No, that's, so if we went into the program right now at $259,000 and you broke that out over 5 years, it would be or 7 years, it would be $43,000 a year for 7 years. Versus calculating out interest rate, $450,000 by the time you purchased them all. And then
How many SCBA's is this purchase?
it would be 25 packs total
Over the course of,
over the course of 5,
5
7
years.
years. Yeah.
so the program that he's describing that they found, which is an interesting one to consider, it basically, the same is true, and I'll let Chief speak to this, but he has vehicles here that do need to be replaced. And he's looking at a replacement of the entirety of the fleet over the course of time at a reduced rate rather than paying out a kind of right off the shelf prices. So, but it does have an interest charge to it, which would be absorbed as part of the payment strategies in the department budget. So the same would be true with the city hall vehicle, and there's other vehicles we're still exploring what is possible with this, but I think Paul has kind of articulated that there's more possibilities there. It's run through First National Bank.
Yeah, First National Bank, it's called Community Leasing Partners, and I can forward you this email with the breakdown for my SCBA's to Susan. She can pass that on so you guys can kind of take a look at it over the next couple weeks. Any questions about anything else?
I guess as far, from my perspective, I guess the financing is all well and good, and that's probably a good program that we take advantage of, but I just assume here why you need the SCBA's, how many it's getting, how long are they good for, you know, they have to be recertified.
Sure.
And how long can they be recertified for us, and, you know, why do we need new SCBA's?
Right, so we purchased these SCBA's off of a Homeland Security grant in 2005. And so per NFPA, they have to be inspected annually or biannually or sometimes every 3 years. And we're getting to a point now where the cost is just not beneficial to keep the packs that we have. And the packs that we have now, they won't repair them because they're outside of the NFPA spec, which is 10 years, and we're going on, 12, 13 years now on these packs. So it'd be beneficial for the community to purchase these packs now at this low price before the prices start jumping up. Like I said, if we were gonna go replace these packs over the next 5 years, 5 or 6 packs a year, it would be a cost to the city about $450,000. So yes, there are aging equipment, and these are critical pieces of equipment for the firefighters.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. So, any questions on the SCBA's?
Okay, we're gonna go on number 2. So our substation needs repair. The slab has settled over time, and our building is tweaking, and our cables, cross cables, are out of whack. If I can just demonstrate on this table on what it looks like, it would probably help you guys out. So we had a professional come out and scope it, and if we took this table and tilted it, it would look like this. So it's facing the lake on the northeast side is 10 inches down than from the southwest side. It's like this. Unfortunately for our community, it was signed off that way.
You should speak in the mic, right?
Okay. So what I have found is that unfortunately the community signed off on it in 2002 or 2003. The reason why this needs to be replaced is the cables are stretching. I think the cables are actually holding the structure up. And if you look down the sidewalls, you can see them start to tweak. And that houses our tanker and some of our other emergency equipment. The reason why also we need to repair this is because we can't build or install any more equipment or shelving for our equipment. So if we happen to have the money to build a mezzanine, the mezzanine would be level, but the building wouldn't be. And if we fixed it and we built the mezzanine, it would be off whack and it wouldn't be right. So the building definitely needs to be repaired. One of the contractors that I was talking to said basically one of the easiest ways to do it would be to unbolt the building from the slab, lift it up and level it, and put shims underneath each one of the legs, and then re-pour concrete. One of the other opportunities, or I guess another way I've seen it, is they drill holes into the slab and they use that expanding foam like they do in sidewalks to level sidewalks out. That might be another opportunity to or something else to do it. So it's an ongoing issue. I brought this up in the past a couple times. So the professional that came out quoted us about $150,000, and that was just a quote. That wasn't like what it's actually going to cost. We have no idea. So that's my number 2 on the list. And number 3 on the list.
Let's stay with number 2, man.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So again, I guess, Helen, that would be a question. Again, we've hired this engineering company. Is that kind of part of their forte? They're going to come out, look at this building, give us an opinion on it? Will they give us some ideas?
I think Paul has already had someone come out and do that. I don't recall that it was a building that was part of that initial assessment. We limited it to those buildings that we did not have information on, and I think the general consensus was that we knew what was wrong with this building.
And that was free information from a professional.
We got an engineer coming down, and we're inspecting buildings that were built 30 years ago, 20 years ago, like the chamber, and not this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the other point I want to make is that the community did not sign off on that building. Absolutely did not sign off on the building. The city manager that was here at the time, the public works director was here at the time, they signed off on that building, and it's been one of my pet peeves for 35 years doing business of. You do work for the city, nobody comes out, inspects, nobody looks. Now that's changed now, and it's good. But this has been an ongoing problem, and this is the result of what you get. It's the quicker the better, the work gets done. The only reason this thing did this is because they didn't dig out the ground material correctly, they didn't put good material back in, and didn't compact. And nobody from the city said a word. And, you know, that doesn't reflect on anybody that works at the city here now, but that's why I'm glad people we have here now are starting to pay attention. So that's the cause. So the community didn't sign off on that. We got taken.
Somebody did.
Well, we did.
Somebody did. So anyway, yeah, and unfortunately, I guess my concern is if it's gonna settle anymore and those cables start to snap, the whole building could just twist and collapse onto our emergency equipment that's out there. So that's why that's in that position there as number 2.
You bring up a good point, and it's something perhaps with Melvin you can do. You can you need to establish an elevation on that building right now, outside and inside, and you need to be monitoring that between now and whenever you get repairs on it. And hopefully the settling is stopped.
That's what I'm hoping.
Well, I know that, but you need to confirm that, because if it's still settling, then it's a different operation to repair it, right? You just don't pick things up because it's going to continue. So I would advise, getting together, getting some marks on that. You're going to have a waypoint that you can measure from on the outside, drive a pin in, and start monitoring that, because it'll make a difference on how you repair that.
Noted.
And anybody that tells you they're just going to do it, then you gotta be shy of that, because there could be a tree trunk underneath there rotting away.
Pretty sure there is.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt.
Probably 2 trees.
I remember before that was filled in, I used to play in those woods.
Yeah.
Oh, it's your fault.
So I'm just looking at the clock at 7:30. Maybe we can kind of go through all of the rest of fire and EMS, and then answer any questions that council might have, and then kind of keep moving along.
Yeah, so just moving along, number 3 would be to, after the substation repair, would be to re-stretch the cables, or have a new cable stretch and tie it in. Number 4 would be to add on to that would be to add shelving out to the substation to move a lot of our equipment out there. We've got 3 facilities right now. One of my goals was to get rid of the connexes down on the other side of the building and move some of that equipment out there outside the tsunami zone. And number 5, our ski hill radio shelter up on top of Ski Hill is over 50 years old. We brought that up in the past many years ago to have something done and replaced, or build a kind of a shelter lean-to over the top of it. Most of the damage was done during snowpocalypse. And then obviously the public safety building will always be on there forever, and so that's on there. And then the harbor response vehicle, or we call it Cupcake, is 27 years old, probably needs to be replaced. We just replaced the pump with a lower model just so we can keep operations on it. And then ambulance replacement, Medic 7 is 26 years old. These would come out of the vehicle acquisition fund, so it's no cost from the city or the taxpayers. And I think could be like almost $480,000 in that fund right now from ambulance billing.
Are the public safety facility and the jail police facility remodel separate? I mean, they're listed here separate, but those wouldn't be the same project down the line?
Separate.
Those are separate projects. Any questions for fire EMS?
Well, I guess the one question I have is on the public safety facility, $30 million, I don't know how you go out for grants stuff, you throw out a number to the moon, or why not be more realistic on what you'd actually spend? Maybe there's a reason to put that high of a number.
I think it was, $22 million, 2010?
We did have the original architect come back and do a space analysis to determine if the facility that was conceived and planned in 2010 was still a reasonable facility, and they did make some major adjustments.
We did.
And with today's date, I mean, we're spending a lot of money on harbor and only getting half a harbor, so, I mean, these are just, you know, estimates at this point in time, but clearly we'll need federal and state resources to kickstart and substantially fund those in order for that to get off the ground.
Yeah, and that, hopefully it happens, and when it does happen, that plan will come before the city council at the time to go over before that.
Oh, yeah,
That's
of
not,
course.
okay.
It's on the capital improvement list, but it's been there, so we just keep pushing it down the road, so it's.
Oh, I'm familiar with the plan, so.
Bring it back to their attention every year, just to kind of throw it out there, that was the goal, was to get rid of that facility when this one was built and start on a new one and make that into a parking lot, and we're still there, so just keep it going. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew, would you like to go over jail and law enforcement?
All right, yeah, just like Paul was saying, he actually found that loan company for the vehicles. My vehicles, I have most of them are over 10 years old. The newest one is 2015. It sounds like a diesel engine. Loses power. Most of our vehicles, besides Cameron, Sergeant Hayden's, can make it up a hill. The rest of ours struggle. Point in case, I had to respond here for an emergency call, and my vehicle died 3 times, and that's the new one, the newer one. So that was number 1 on the list. So was, and I know you guys might not like this, but I had the jail remodel as number 1 as well. It's just something that I walked into. I'm that type of person that looks at things and safety concerns, security concerns. You know, you guys talked about paint chipping up here. We have jail cells that paint the floors are all chipped up. There's several things that inmates can hear our conversations upstairs, which is a security concern for us. So there's quite a few problems. We need to put in a door to our patrol room, so it's not just free access if somebody breaks in the windows through the DMV, or our interview room where they can get into our patrol room, injure an officer, or let the inmates out. Also, it's a safety concern for our dispatchers. We only have 1 dispatcher on at night. Somebody breaks in, and again, I've been doing this for 15 years, worst case scenarios, right? Somebody goes in and shoots our dispatcher, and then goes to school, shoots up the school, and everybody's calling 911. There's not going to be anything there. So, to me, these are important things that need to be looked at seriously. I'm not just throwing numbers out there and want to buy new guns. This is something for our community as well. You know, we've been pretty busy this last 3 weeks. Our jail has been full. And there's some safety concerns for people with mental illnesses that come in, that we need to make one of our jail cells a padded area so we are not held liable. So I'm taking in all these concerns. I have gotten some bids on a few things. I'm waiting on some more. So those are those 2. The Spillman CAD system, that's a couple years out. That's just to update. What we're using now is an ARM system. It's not user-friendly. Constantly having problems. And that's how we run criminal histories, do our reports on, all that kind of stuff. Which comes with the dispatch radio console. Ours is, I'm not very tech savvy. Blake is supposed to be here and help me out on this, but ours is really old and it's going to need to be replaced in the next couple years. And as you can see, those aren't cheap. And then we have the E911 project, and Again, I'm new here. Paul has more experience, plethora of knowledge on it. If you guys have questions on that, I'll refer it to Paul.
I guess what I have to say about the E911 program is that if we decide to do that, then there's a way to pay for that with the E911 surcharge. So that doesn't have to come out of general fund or permanent fund at all. It's pretty sure it could be financed and we could reinstate that surcharge if we decide we're going to go that route. So.
One thing I forgot to mention with the vehicles, that $38,098.04, that's with, I believe it's no down payment, but that's for 3 trucks once a year, that payment. As you guys know, inflation and everything else, if we're looking to replace each truck or vehicle, each year the prices, as you guys have seen with vehicles, have gone up, skyrocketed. And I'm planning on keeping these vehicles, 7 years until they need to be replaced. We're gonna have something implemented. We're working on it where we're gonna be making sure our officers are taking care of their vehicles.
So just a quick question on the leases, and I guess it goes to both of those, or these payment plan. That's not a lease, it's purchasing it over time, is that correct?
Correct.
So the vehicles would be ours after whatever payment term we choose, 4 or 5 years.
And I believe the price is locked, is that correct? So if the cost of a truck goes up next year, we've already committed to the price that is listed here.
Exactly, you are locked into that, and yeah, it's called a community leasing program, but no, it's once you make that first payment, the equipment is ours, it's the city's. Yes.
Questions?
Can I just give a little history of E911? That's a 30-year project. Just FYI. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's 30, that's a comment.
That's a comment then.
Yeah, we've been working on it for 20
I thought you were
years.
gonna tell us a story.
30 years.
Okay,
I think I asked this question of our public works director when we bought new equipment for the landfill, and she assured me it was gonna happen, and I'll pose the same question to you. Are you guys gonna have a maintenance sheet? Is it the maintenance, oil change and the greasing? Is it gonna get done? Because you can put 400,000 or 500,000 miles on these engines if you just change the oil.
And you know what, I agree with you. Where I come from, we did monthly inspections, and that was, our uniforms, vehicles, checking the mileage, checking the oil. When we first get the vehicle, we take pictures around it, and then that pretty much, now things happen, but if it's just the guy being reckless, hitting things with his door when he's opening up, those are documented, everything else like that. So it's gonna be, I have Sergeant Hayden, I informed him of what I want, he's on it. If you guys know Sergeant Hayden, he gets on it.
Maintenance is the key to longevity with it.
Right, but I am gonna let you know that police vehicles are different than our personal vehicles, a lot more engine hours. They are unfortunately pushed a little bit harder in certain situations. Here it's a little bit different, so there's a difference in it. But I do agree with you, if you stay up on the maintenance and everything else and take care of your vehicle, then they should last us the 7 years.
Any other questions for him? Okay, thank you.
okay, Parks and Rec, Duncan.
Lucky last. So, as you can see, I've got a number of projects on the list. I'll start off with what I believe is the most important one, which is not a physical infrastructure thing, but it's some planning. We need to really develop a long-term plan for our parks and recreation assets. what do we want to do with them in 10, 20 years? What are the needs of the people going to be? So therefore we can plan for those. There has been various attempts for master plans. The last documented one I have is the year 2000. So yeah, it's time for a new one. I need to bring in some consultants to help with that process. I've suggested we do it over a 2-year period, plan it out, get community input. Don't rush things. That's that one. The elephant in the room, number 2, swimming pool. So we've had the engineers through. They've provided me with a first draft of a cost estimate. There's some interesting numbers in it. They've provided me with a list of 22 defects at the swimming pool which need to be addressed. At current prices over $4.7 million. They've also provided me with an option of a new swimming pool which will be like for like. It's $14 million. It doesn't include any design or professional services. It's just building. So for next year, the 2 projects I've identified from that list is one, a replacement of the pool liner. That's at the end of its life. It is 12 years old when it had a warranty of 10 years. It is lifting. If it lifts and fails, that pool will fail because the water will corrode the aluminium shell, and then we've got some real serious problems. An estimated cost of a new pool liner is $150,000. They've also identified that the entire electrical distribution panel needs to be replaced. There's another $100,000 plus. So, yeah, I've got a list. As I said, out years up to $4 million, and clearly will go up. Even the prices I have at the moment include a 5% escalation between now and summer. So things are just unfortunately going to keep on going up. Other projects, number 3, skaters cabin, again, cost estimate. Engineers are recommending that it's past repair, it needs to be replaced. So I'm suggesting next year we need to talk about demolition and then out year rebuild. Current estimate for a 243 square foot cabin is close to 300,000.
A profit now.
Yeah, so that again, so a lot of these figures include 35% contingency, 45% profit margin for a contractor, 5% special market, 5% cost escalation between now and summer. So, yeah, it's hard reading, but you know, it's an important community facility, and we need to have a discussion around what that looks like in the future. Other projects which I haven't ranked, but our windows at Bedaki are all failing. They're rotted. The building leaks. We need to look at a replacement program for that. The engineers are due to come in next week to do Bedaki. Again, I'm not expecting a great meeting. Again, our locker rooms at Bedaki, floors are failing. They need modernisation. They need to be fit for purpose of how modern people want to use the facility. The trail development, so again we've worked on a comprehensive outdoors trails plan, which is still in development. Once that is finished, that's obviously going to require some capital work to maintain our trails, make sure things like the breakwater trail are actually maintained properly, because when you walk out there and you're going to get your feet wet. Again, parks fencing, all our parks fencing is starting to fail. We need to have a replacement program every year to replace sections of park fencing. Vehicles, oh sorry, I missed one. The ball field, so I'm talking about the Little League field. I've never seen anywhere where kids play on pea gravel. We should really think about the future of that and say, okay, if we replace that pea gravel with an artificial surface, how many more hours of usage could we get? It's an investment, but again, that is a question for a master plan. So I'll program that out. Again, playground renewals. We need to identify our playgrounds, what are their purpose, what's appropriate for kids these days. All our equipment is end of life or getting there. We've maintained it well. Playground lasts 20 years. So we need to look at replacement programs. Again, theme of the night, vehicles. We've got a 1993 van, which I'm personally worried about getting in and driving. The engine light's on, it's always been on, nobody knows why. You literally have to wear the gear in it because the seats are wet. We've replaced the windscreens. It's got some fundamental issues. It's the only covered vehicle we have. So when we need to move plywood or whatever it is, that's it. We've got 2 other trucks, but they're just pickups. So, camper park, we need to start thinking about what we do with that piece of land. It needs some love, some investment. If people want to stay there, we need to invest into that to make it a quality experience for what people are paying. Especially seasonal, they're paying $975 a month. So, not much. Yeah, that's it so far. Questions?
Questions, anybody?
Have you talked to the Forest Service about the trails? I know they had abundance of money.
Yeah. So we will try and hook in to where we can. Things like the breakwater. Right. Yeah, well, let's say, we needed to resurface that. How much gravel is that? Gravel is expensive, It hasn't been resurfaced since it was built. So it's starting to be unpleasant.
Or are they willing to work with you on it or fund it?
Yeah. So again, the Forest Service is a key part of the trails plan. Because most of the trails Forest Service wants apart from the ski hill. So again, that we lease that piece of land, we're responsible ultimately for the development of that piece of land. What type of trails should be up there? How do we maintain them?
I would say too that you might want to keep an eye on the secure rural schools funding that comes up for the skaters cabin, just because it's right at a Forest Service trailhead, so there's a connection there. And
yeah. So again, I'm only putting in $10,000 a year over 5 years.
I was thinking like $200,000 to replace it.
Yeah.
I think you could get a sizable chunk, but maybe there's some value engineering that could be done on a $300,000 figure.
Again, I'm pitching this as maintenance, maintaining it to a level, not necessarily improving it.
So, Jones?
Yeah, I was just gonna say with the cabin replacement, that figure is just crazy.
Yeah.
We could, you can build a cabin for 1/10 of that. So, it might not be a log cabin or might not have the aesthetic or whatever, but the Forest Service just announced they have a bunch of money coming down the pipe, building all these cabins. They're building one on another part of the lake. They've got like 4 different cabins on the road system they're gonna build, so I don't know, it might be worth reaching out to them if they have cabin money.
Yeah, we're having that conversation. I understand that money is locked to them on their Forest Service
that
land.
money would probably have to be on Forest Service land.
Yeah.
But the secure rural
We'll
schools.
deed it to them. They put money into this one, didn't they?
Steve's cabin?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
You got a sign in there that says it is.
Yeah, the Raleigh crew, Operation Raleigh, yeah.
So yeah, like, I'm sure you can buy a kit seat cable, which isn't gonna cost you 300,000, but this is, yeah, the price which on the table at the moment, and I'm sure there's value engineering you can always do, 100%. I think we need to be conservative in our predictions.
I think one of the things, if I might mention, is that some of these larger ticket items, like swimming pool repairs, knowing that at any moment that the pool liners basically could let go. I mean, wouldn't we like to know that 5 years ago so that we could be planning for it? And that is really what ultimately we're attempting to do, is that these large ticket items don't come up where we have to react immediately to them, but that we can respond thoughtfully and budget over time to take care of them. They are going to happen. Swimming pool liners are going to have to be replaced. Buildings are going to need new roofs, windows. That is just kind of normal wear and tear, and in many cases unavoidable, but we need to be able to see them coming so that we can plan and budget for them. And right now I feel like a lot of what you've been faced with as council is having to, oh my God, we've got to replace this, or we've got to take care of that. And we're attempting to be proactive. So please know that these, we will have a 5-year capital project discussion in the first quarter of next year. But there are some things that are on this list that definitely need to be addressed immediately. And we'll have a conversation and hone this list with a better number so that you guys at the next meeting can think about what to allocate, if any, towards these projects.
Well, I can just see that AstroTurf on the first 100-mile blow we get just being out in the ocean. So, I think that there's no way the community's gonna support $500,000 for AstroTurf.
I think you find somebody to put that in for you for nothing, so.
And I just wanted to ask, I might be, you might have said this already and maybe it didn't register and I'm still trying to get my head around. Are we just reviewing this so that we can get a sense of kind of the total volume and how we might help? I mean, we're not being asked to rank this tonight, but I'm also wondering how, I think you said something earlier about some funding source, and so is the idea that some of this could come from state capital budget money, or?
Yeah, I think we have to identify some of the other fund sources. I think what was mentioned is the harbor response vehicle and the ambulance, that there's vehicle acquisition fund dollars banked and could pay for pieces of that. We could take that out of this budget. There might be things like what you just said, you know, if the collective body says no way in heck we're going to be doing AstroTurf, we take that out. So there's things that I think we've already gotten feedback on, and there's been some adjustments already around departmental priorities. So if we were to just pare this down to departmental priorities and those items that don't look to be able to get funding from other things, I'll have by Friday I'll get you guys a revised list with a new total capital cost for 2023 based on what department heads feel like if we don't do it, it's going to cost us more or we're going to lose an asset kind of mentality. I think we can narrow this list down to a number, and then you all will, the decision you're going to need to make is that obviously at this moment in time there's no additional funds on the table other than dipping into reserves or permanent fund or whatever source of funds you guys want to consider. Certainly there's some grant funding opportunities that we can identify as well, and maybe pare this down again. But just to getting feedback from you all around, yeah, no appetite for that, no way in whatever, that would give us a bit more direction.
Questions, comments? Councilmember Gard, are you still there? Councilmember Meyer, any comments?
Sure. I really appreciate seeing this capital projects, I'm kind of looking at it right now as a wish list. And it would be nice to see it more in a smaller form. I don't think that there's any way we could do $2.8 million to include into this budget that's already pretty high, but I see some real items on there that could be grant funded or look after those monies that we could maybe tackle some things on this list, and some of the things I think probably won't happen. But I think that this is good to have eyes on and try to tackle it in some manner, and maybe have it kind of additional to the budget, and maybe take some of these things off that we can address in this budget. But I do appreciate having it, and I would like to think these 5-year plans and take care of these things, because we need to stay on top of them. So really appreciate it. Thanks.
Anybody else? I don't hear any other comments, so is there any final comments, Alan?
No, I will send you a refined list with a smaller number for FY '23, and get that back to you hopefully by Friday.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, use your mic, please.
Sorry, I just thought about it and I want to be able to sleep tonight. Real quick, I invite all of you guys, if you want to come down and look at our jail and our facility. I know you guys are aware of it. But again, I'm that type of person that I want you guys to see it, and I'm not just throwing stuff out there. We're holding the floors together by duct tape. So, you know, this is kind of stuff that I want you guys to see, that, you know, see if you guys can see something and give us an idea. I'm all about it. So, you guys are welcome to come down.
Okay, thank you. Any last comments from council?
I would just say thank you. It is great to have a capital projects list and to have this conversation about the whole universe of things that need doing, and I really appreciate you all taking the time to put it together and to explain it to us, so thank you.
Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I appreciate this. I really would, you know, to go along with what I think this Councilmember Meyer was saying, I would like to see maybe another reiteration of this capital projects list, and maybe get rid of some of the wish list items and get like what absolutely has to happen. I know we have a priority, but just the sticker shock of the 2.8 being on there, I think we can bring that down pretty substantially if we focus just on what we need to do. And, you know, I'd be more in favor of prioritizing the building maintenance side of things over the vehicles. That's just, I guess, me. So I want to make sure we're taking care of our facilities first. Thanks.
Last chance?
Yeah, I guess I echo all those comments, and the vehicles, I think having a discussion with the Public Works Department a while back when they bought the last truck, and for what the city can purchase the vehicles, I think it really pays to get new vehicles and maintain them, because they do get quite a discount through the state, and you think about your maintenance and upkeep, and you know, when these old ratty vehicles runs down the road and tie rod falls out and somebody gets injured, and we're at it. So I do support that, the vehicles, because they get the good price, but I certainly want to see the maintenance done, because I don't think the maintenance has been done on these vehicles properly, or they'd be in better shape, quite frankly. Is another question, do we vote on the budget, do we vote on the capital projects list separate? Is it two, when this gets all done, or how does that work?
We don't have to approve a capital budget before the end of the year, like the way we have to do an operating budget. We're required to do that before the end of the year. So capital can be later, and they are often separate. I don't think we've done one in a couple of years.
Most of the time they're separate, but we've combined them a couple of times. It just depends on how.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see what the engineering firm has to say, and only talks to Parks and Rec, or Forest Service on some of these things. I think there's other things down the line before I could vote on this, so, okay.
I would like to add that there are some things, as is noted, that are kind of low-hanging fruit that need to be done, we can start work on, and then there are other things that maybe we need to address. And my hope is the first quarter of 2023, we'll have that report. We'll be able to look more strategically around what do we have to do and what our priorities are. But some of these items I know are of immediate concern, and we'll bring those forward to you in a revised budget and make sure that what's in that 2023 capital cost is actually not a wish list, but a we got to get this done list. And then we'll move forward with a more strategic approach in first quarter with some real data coming from that engineering, and also a more refined list of things to do over 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so we got a workshop scheduled before the next meeting?
Yes, do we want to do 5:30 or 6? Currently, I have it on a calendar at 6, but I don't have a ton of stuff on that regular meeting again. We could do what we did last time with the recess and then reconvene the work session after. Aren't a few of you missing?
Yes.
You're out altogether.
And
And not here, but
I'll try to call in, but I don't.
You can call.
Calling in,
Okay.
unless something comes up. When is the next meeting?
16th. A week from today.
Week from today.
It's a regular council meeting, and a work session would be scheduled before.
And then do you have a,
Is there a different date that would work for the work session? If people were around?
We kind of tie it in with them.
Yeah.
That worked well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if a lot of people are gone.
I would be here Tuesday.
Yeah,
I
I would be
can't-
here Tuesday
I-
as well, but
yeah.
we're leaving, well, actually, I'm leaving at noon on Tuesday.
I could do Monday or Tuesday.
well, I don't know, if you're gonna be able to turn something around by then?
Yeah, I can get,
But what, do you know what the center here is doing next week?
I don't have the schedule down.
I don't have next week's either, she does it 1 week at a
I
time.
can,
Malvin, do you know?
Sorry,
Anything here next week?
I don't have the calendar. I won't have it till next week,
Yeah, I know, me too.
Friday.
We can try and shoot for Tuesday instead at,
some of these folks are not gonna be Tuesday, it'll be Monday.
oh,
Yeah, I would be gone by noon Tuesday, I don't know what time you're leaving Tuesday.
I'm southbound on Wednesday.
Okay, but I don't have to be here, I don't get a vote anyway, so.
I'll be traveling on Tuesday. Wouldn't be able to.
all right, so Monday, is that what we're doing? The 14th? Is that right?
You're figuring it out and letting us know.
Yeah, okay,
Monday.
okay.
I'll miss Monday.
You'll miss Monday?
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday I'll be traveling.
Oh,
So it's not a really matter.
Yeah.
You could do it Tuesday and Kathy would be here. And can you call on Tuesday?
Is it, what time's the meeting?
if it's 6 here, where are you gonna be?
6 o'clock I could do, I couldn't do the new meeting here. Yeah, I might be able to do it Tuesday.
Tuesday at 6, it'd be
Yeah.
9 where you're going?
Yeah.
Was that P and Z?
No.
Pat Pansy was less.
Because they were last night, CTC, but they're upstairs, or do they meet in here now?
We'll figure it out.
They've been upstairs, but anyway.
I can't do Monday, but I can do Tuesday.
Okay,
So-
Tuesday at 6 is looking good, but not for you. Or for you, yes, too? And you on the phone, and yes, okay. That's what we're shooting for, Tuesday, the
Okay,
15th at 6.
sounds good. Any further business? We'll adjourn.
Thanks, everyone.